Our movie starts with Darl, a student at the university who is responsible for introducing new students to his university and everything in it. He gets paid for the tours he conducts because he needs every dollar he can collect from anywhere since he is the one who supports his mother and sisters. One of the things he participates in at the university is delivering packages to departments, and he delivers a package to a neuropsychology professor during his tour. When Darl enters the lab, he finds a doctor and his assistant Dan, who are conducting experiments on animals. One of the experiments involves making a rat glow in the dark. After delivering the package, Darl returns to his group so they can finish the tour quickly and move on to the next one. At the end of the day, he goes back to his dormitory exhausted. His mother calls to check on him and asks about his upcoming employment date at the stock exchange, as he had told her earlier. He reassures her that he will be able to work in his preferred field and save more money. His mother asks him for money to pay the gas bill, or it will be disconnected. The bill amount is $2,774, and he adds it to his existing expenses. Before he ends the call, he tells her that he is the best candidate for the stock exchange job and not to worry about him. The next day, he receives a call from the university's installment office, reminding him that he has not paid his last installment. He pretends to be his mother on the phone and says that Darl has died and won't be able to pay the fees. The next day, Darl searches for any legal way to get money, and one of the ways he comes up with is to go to the blood donation center that pays donors. However, donors are only allowed to donate once a month, and the rules are clearly posted on a sign in front of the center, which Darl sees but chooses to ignore. He decides to donate more than once in the same day, so each time he changes his facial features, his clothes, his name, and so on until he faints from the exhaustion he endures. He goes to the barber to sell his hair to make wigs out of it, but the barber refuses to buy it because it is still too short and of no use to him. He then offers food at his university and meets his foolish friend Scott, who is also trying to take a job in the stock exchange and become Drill's main competitor. Scott tells him that the job is almost his because there is no one better qualified for it, especially since he is the president of the University Students Club and the son of the third largest bank manager in the city, and that Drill does not care about anything. Scott tells him this because he is focused on one thing only, and that is his female classmate, who he secretly admires but doesn't have the courage to tell her. There is a student meeting for the job at the stock exchange, and Professor Ronald, the director of the company that Drill hopes to work for, tells everyone that they choose only one student each year to work as an analyst and hopes that Drill will be the one. After playing hockey, he goes to his coach and tricks him into letting him play, promising that it will help him improve his grades because of his athletic participation. He asks his friend to recommend him to the coach to play aggressively and even becomes the team's goalkeeper. But he's very unsuccessful in the game. After finishing playing, he accidentally sees an ad from Dr. Wadden, who is looking for participants for his experiments and is willing to pay good money for them. He goes to the lab to find out more and tells everyone that the experiment has not been tested on humans before, only on rats, and that it has serious side effects such as nausea, headache, and other dangerous symptoms. Those who are with Darl will go with him, except him because he will be sleeping and won't hear a word of congratulations. Nevertheless, he agrees to participate in the experiment because he didn't hear what was said, and he meets Dr. Wadden, who says that the drug being tested was designed to increase the effectiveness of the senses, making them 10 times stronger. He warns that the drug is the most important thing, and that he should take exactly 6 cm of it every day by injection before sleeping, and never exceed the amount. After the experiment is over, he will be given $3,000, and the drug will be surrendered. Darl will be very happy with the amount, and will agree to anything he says. Then he goes to a party made at the university club and talks to the members because he also wants to join until he is silenced and mocked as usual, and then expelled from the party because he is not a member. He goes back home and finds the drug shining in his suitcase. He decides to take the first dose and goes to sleep because he has an important exam the next day for a job, and he feels that something is wrong. The sounds become very high to the point that he hears the sound of writing with a pen on the exam paper and the sound of the seconds of the clock around him, and all the smells in the place seem to blend together, and he can't concentrate on the exam. Suddenly, he gets up from his place and argues with all the students around him until the materials doctor expels them from the exam. Darl runs to Dr. Wadden and tells him what happened and that he feels his body is stiff. They say that this is the normal reaction to the drug and it will disappear over time once his body adapts to the new strength of his senses. He goes back home to train his senses well and knows that he has been removed from the list of qualified people for the job because of what he did in the exam. He tries to control and train his senses well and can use them and control them as the doctor said. He will be at a party held by the university for the 5 qualified people for the stock job, and Darl will be the waiter. He was very sad because he missed the opportunity of a lifetime, and he goes to Mr. Ronald to introduce himself. Ronald remembers him from the speech in which he introduced himself, and he will be responsible for the food and drink at the party. After he moves away from Ronaldo and Scott, he listens to what they are talking about and jumps back into the conversation, showing that Daryl is very knowledgeable and impressing Ronald. He also mentions that he's familiar with the stock market and shows them his stocks from a distance before returning to Ronald and telling him that he remembers all the stocks belonging to the companies and has kept them. And everyone tries to test him, and he passes the test due to his exceptional ability to see like an eagle. At the end of the night, Ronald declares that he has become the 6th qualified person due to his intelligence, and Daryl goes to a doctor and thanks him for his medication. After conducting tests, the doctor is satisfied with the results of his medication but warns him that excessive use can lead to opposite results and addiction. The next day, he goes to the university club because he knows Mr. Ronald is there, and Scott tries to kick him out like last time. But Ronald intervenes because he's an active member of the club and gives Daryl membership because he is impressed by him. Daryl notices the attention, sensing an opportunity when he sees a woman adjusting her makeup by using his exceptional hearing to hear that she is looking for her dream man and doesn't like anyone at the party. He waits for her to leave to say goodbye, but when he doesn't see her, he offers to take her home and talks about himself as an ambitious young man who wants to succeed by trusting himself. He impresses Jan until he brings her to her house and arranges to go out with her again the next day. She agrees, and he goes to the hockey coach the next day and asks him for a second chance in the game. Due to his visual and auditory acuity, he is able to handle all the blows that come his way, and his coach is impressed by his performance. He participates in his first official game in the University League, and is the reason for his team's victory for the first time. The next day, he goes to the meeting organized by Ronald with the qualified individuals and is able to engage in Ronald's favorite topics to learn more about them and be able to talk about everything Ronald likes. He goes to Ronald's house and convinces him with his unlimited knowledge, and Ronald gives him the tickets for the first-class basketball game. They say that one of the board members will be there and will try to steal his affection, and this will help him a lot in his appointment. At night, Daryl prepares a romantic dinner for Jan at his house, and they spend a lovely time together. He takes her to his mother and family, whom he takes care of, and Daryl continues to take his medication but accidentally takes an overdose to become stronger. He doubles the dose and wakes up the next day with sore eyes and a paralyzed right side, immediately going to the doctor, who tells him what he did wrong. The doctor tells him that he can only use 4 of the 5 medications because of his actions, and that he may temporarily lose some of his senses. It takes about 3 days for all the effects to disappear, and he should stay in bed and avoid sports, but he cannot follow the doctor's advice because he has to attend the basketball game that he attends with Ronald. On the way back from the game, he loses his vision and can no longer see ahead of him, but instead of staying in one place, he continues to run and eventually falls. He stands next to the players and continues to make mistakes in his team until he is finally beaten. Ronald is annoyed with him and advises him to focus all his energy on hockey
and not repeat the same mistakes as yesterday. He returns to his house and finds that his colleague Jens has visited him, impressed by him and trying to get closer to him. But then he loses control of his body and realizes that he does not want Daryl. She leaves him and meets a man she wants to beat up to punish him for his infidelity. He lies on the ground until the next day, the day Daryl plays hockey and loses his vision while standing in the goal. Instead of deflecting shots from the opposing team, he attacks his teammates and stands behind the goal, doing nothing. He becomes the best player in hockey and tries to fix everything that has gone wrong in his life. The first person he wants to revive is Jens. He goes to her house and is greeted by Ronald. Since Daryl doesn't see who is in front of him, he starts talking and confesses that he loves her and can't live without her. He tries to hug Ronald, but Jens comes out of the bathroom and Daryl doesn't understand what Ronald is doing in her house. She tells him that Ronald is her father and that she needs to talk to him alone. She leaves the apartment to be alone. The next day is the day of the final competition for Daryl and the 5 nominees. He goes to his friend to learn. Because he has nobody else but him, they stay together and he continues to learn. His father brings him the best people in the field to teach him everything, and each of them does their best to help him focus stronger than ever before in his life in order to pass the exam. They both stay up all night, but he becomes very arrogant and thinks he is the best in the area. When morning comes, they both go to the test site, and on the way there, he loses his way and bumps into everything around him. He falls into a garbage heap and is beaten, and his clothes are stolen. He keeps running until he reaches a second-hand store and still has $50 in his pockets. He asks for a suit, and the man gives him a strange suit that he will only see in the company's bathroom, and he enters the test with this suit. The 5 candidates are sitting in classic suits, but he wears a colorful suit and starts the test. One by one, they all fail until he can answer a question and pass the test. Then he decides to tell the truth and confesses that he cheated to get to this stage. But all the answers he gave in the test were due to his effort and learning, and if he had taken a drug to see on TV, he would have done it too. The board holds a meeting and decides to completely cancel his job opportunity, but Ronald tells him that he started his career at the institution's post office, and that if he continues to work hard, he will actually be an analyst in less than a year, and that there is a good position in the post office that he can have. Daryl and his family are happy that he was also hired at the institution, and indeed after a year, a celebration is held for him because he was hired as an analyst.